So today's a sermon that, or not today's sermon, but today's text is one of these texts I think gets really misunderstood, and I really think a lot of sermons miss the entire point of it. Because a lot of folks, when they come to me, will be like, I don't get Peter. I just don't get him. Like, he gets it at first, and then he doesn't get it because he sinks in the water, and then he gets it because he proclaims him Christ, and then he doesn't get it, and Jesus is like, get behind me, Satan. Like, what is wrong with this dude? Like, can't he just figure it out? And a lot of times people say, like the weakness of Peter's faith, or the back and forthness of Peter's faith, or the idea that somehow Peter's got this uniquely problematic faith that gets it and doesn't, and then gets it and then doesn't, right? I think all that is completely the wrong framing for what we're seeing in this text. So let's delve into the text for a minute, and then I'm going to talk into why I think we traditionally frame this up completely wrong. So let's delve into the text. So, since last week, how many of y'all remember last week? Raise your hands. All right, last week, Peter was declared to have the keys to the kingdom, to be the rock on which Jesus was going to found his church. This week, he's Satan. Okay, which should beg the question, did anything change since last week? The answer is nothing changed. This is the next day. If you're reading through the Bible in order, what it says is Jesus says, you have the keys to the kingdom. What is loosed on earth will be loosed in heaven. You are the rock in which I'll build my church on, Peter. Let's all go to sleep. Wake up the next morning. Oh, by the way, here's my plan. Peter goes, what? This is a horrible plan. In fact, I can come up with 1,000 different plans. I don't know. Don't go to Jerusalem. Plan number 1. Plan number 2, if you're going to go to Jerusalem, be put in front of a kangaroo court, hire a lawyer. Plan number 3, let's build an army and invade Jerusalem. Like, I can see Peter being like, I can come up with all sorts of better plans than you being killed. Okay? I bet you we could come up with like a 50-point thing of better plans than getting killed. Okay? And so Peter freaks out. Now, this is very often framed as some sort of weakness or faltering or failure of Peter's faith, but I don't think it is. I think this is the natural evolution of a spiritual journey. See, he's not denying that Jesus is the Son of God. He figured that out last week. He's not denying that Jesus is someone who he is to follow. He figured that out 2 weeks ago. He's not denying that Jesus does not want to be a military power. He figured it out 3 weeks ago. See, I think this is simply a question of how spiritual journeys work. You figure a little out, you move a little forward, you have another faith crisis, it helps you figure out a little bit more, you move a little bit more forward. But a life without faith crises are a life without faith. They go together. I think this gets framed up for a lot of people incorrectly because most of our institutions, at least right now in the United States, frames everything in the sense of winner and loser, right and wrong. When we talk about spirituality, that's the wrong sort of frame to bring to the discussion. I mean, think about it. When you're a student in school, you are a winner if you go to college and a loser if you don't. Right? That's what schools say. And yet, that view doesn't actually pan out in real life, right? For example, when I was going through college, people offered studies in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You could get a Bachelor of the Arts in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, I don't know what you do with it once you have it. You think I'm kidding? Go Google this, guys. You could have done it. I don't know if any of the programs are still alive. But what you're basically doing is signing up for student debt and not a job. Okay? On the flip side, I had friends of mine who went on to become a master electricians. You realize a master electrician can bill like lawyer-level hours? A master plumber the same way? I know a lot of folks who went through high school, didn't go to college, started their own business, made a lot more than I ever will. Okay? Life isn't that simple. Now, is going to college a good idea? Probably. Statistically, probability, it's better than not. But you can't just say winner, loser. You got to know a lot more information before you declare winner, loser. Then do you have a college degree? Because I can show you a lot of winners who don't. I can show you a lot of losers who do, and I can do the inverse of that too. Sports does the same thing to us, right? Sports is all about the winner and the losers. A few weeks ago, the 49ers were declared losers. Right? Poor 49ers. And Kansas City was declared winners. But if you think about it, did the 49ers really lose? Did y'all see the sort of bonuses they got for making it almost all the way? I would be okay with that. You all would be okay with those bonuses too, right? They won way more games than they lost. Why are they considered losers when they're the second best team in the NFL? My Dolphins are far from the second best team in the NFL, but they're still better than any of the high school teams I ever saw. Probably. Like, we get this framework and it messes with our own minds. We try to declare people winners, losers, good, evil. If you don't believe me, go listen to any politician. The other side is evil. We frame this over and over in this overly simplistic and not at all realistic view of the world. The world is simply not that simple. Life is simply not as easy as being, I got it. Our evangelical brethren do no help to us in Christianity by continuing to promote the same idea, right? You're born again, you're saved, or you're damned, or whatever, right? You either believe this or you're going to hell. That's not helpful. That's not life. That's not spirituality. It's not how it works at all. All this evil, or all this sort of evil, good, simple view of the world doesn't pan out when you start living life. Because the reality is, none of us got it all figured out. And most of us are just making it up as we go along. If you ask any small business person, they're just rolling with the punches, right? If you ask any parent, they're doing the same thing. Heck, if you ask any teachers, they're doing the same thing. They're just rolling with the punches day to day, in and out. I have worked in politics, I've worked in the church, I've worked in finance. We all making it up as we go along. We're just trying to figure it out. See, that's the real reality. That's what's always consistent. News break to y'all. Your parents were just making it up as they went along. Just like their parents and just like their parents' parents. Now you may ask yourself, what is the danger to trying to simplify things to good, evil, right, wrong, winner, loser? Well, it makes things like Peter's spirituality unintelligible. Because what's really happening with Peter is not that he's a winner, loser, winner, loser. It's not that he's sort of schizophrenic. There's not two Peters in a battle there. No, what you really have is a human being trying to figure it out, trying to follow God the best he knows each and every time that God reveals a little bit more to him. God said, follow me. He said, sure. God said, oh, by the way, I'm not getting a legion. He went, what? Then he got over that. And he said, you're the real son of God. I really believe, even though you're not grabbing a legion, that you're up to something good. And he said, great, you got that. The good thing I'm up to is I'm going to die on a cross. And Peter's like, whoa, bad idea. It's not that Peter would have thought it was a good idea 3 days earlier. He would have thought it was a horrible idea 3 days earlier. It's good that Jesus didn't tell him 3 days earlier, or maybe his faith would have broken. And he would have walked away. Because if he didn't get that Jesus is the Son of God, he never would have gotten why he needs to go to Jerusalem and die. But this is what spirituality looks like. This is what a life of faith looks like. It's not about being right. It's not about being the winner. It's not about crossing a line. It's not about getting a certain number of scores. It's about acknowledging the human reality. We're all making it up as we go along. We're all just figuring it out as we try. I mean, sometimes we get it right. Sometimes we get it wrong. But we never get it perfect. But it's in that the really good news of Christ lives. Christ doesn't love you because you're perfect. Christ does not love you because you're a winner. Christ does not condemn you because you're a loser. Christ does not hate you because you're not perfect. All those things don't exist. The reality is, all of us are just people trying our best as people of faith to hear God and God's calling and follow him as far as we can until he gives us more information. And there'll always be more. Here's a secret about pastors I'm going to share with you. I know, it's one of these pastor secrets we all know, especially young pastors, that congregants don't. See, congregations everywhere, if you were to ask them, who is going to be the youth that will be the future pastor? They almost always, there's been some polls on this, there's almost always they pick the same person. They pick Johnny Football. We all know Johnny Football. Johnny Football is that student who is popular. He's like, I love Jesus. He helps me win football games. I got my promise ring on one hand, my cheerleader girlfriend on the other. I go ahead and say John 3:16 all the way. Love Jesus, hashtag blessed. That dude. Okay? I'm going to tell you right now, none of those dudes, for the most part, made it through seminary. Very few ever even went. It was so true that there is currently, and there was when I was a seminary a decade ago, a thriving intercollegiate role-play board gaming association of seminarians only in the Lutheran Church. And Luther Bowl is barely making it year to year. Why? Because the professors have to basically threaten you into playing football, where you can have online gaming consortiums of seminarians that individually start. Your seminarians, by the way, the kid who's most likely to become your pastor is the one in the back who sort of dresses goth-like and likes World of Warcraft, or whatever the equivalent is now. Yeah, just let that soak in for a moment. But I think that's because World of Warcraft, as crazy as it is with elves and all sorts of stuff, is still about a quest, about a journey, about getting the next thing accomplished, knowing that World of Warcraft will never end. They will never allow that under Blizzard Entertainment. It's too much of a cash cow. There will always be a new quest. But isn't that sort of like life? You have the main quest God sends you on. Sometimes you get to a comfortable place, say, I'm not ready to continue on the main quest. And then God goes, that's no problem. There's side quests everywhere. Go out and explore that. But eventually you run out of side quests. God goes, all right, it's time to move to the next town. It's time to continue the next quest. Why? Because that's really spirituality. It's not like a football game where after a certain amount of minutes, someone wins and somebody loses. Because that's simply not life. As you go out today, take a few minutes and ask yourself, have you framed your world into right, wrong, winner, loser? Because if you have, when you do that, you're not really reflecting reality. Because in life, there really aren't winners and losers. There's just different paths. Then ask yourself, am I on a journey? Am I following what Peter did, which is to listen to God and hear God and follow whatever the main quest line of my life is? And what does that look like for me? Where am I now in that quest? Am I following the main quest line? Am I sitting in the same place finishing off side quests? Or am I walking forward? And what is God calling me to do today? Amen.